Hey, 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 welcome to day number 17 of 21 Days of Prayer for Your Business. Go grab your book, go grab your notebook, go grab a pen. If you don't have the book, it's okay. Still join along on the conversation, but I do hope you have a notebook and a pen. And we are going to dive into a very, very good topic of being still. I feel like we need some kind of like symphony music playing that's like really soft. Be still. That's what I think of when I think of be still.
I was like, I can't help you with that.
Yeah, you're like, I can help you with the dun dun dun,
Yeah.
but I cannot help you with the symphony music. That's okay. I'll let you have a pass on this one. That's great. I wish that was a little bit louder so everybody could have got the full effect of that. But anyway, okay. Today we're talking about being still, and man, I am telling you, every single day, it coincides with something that specifically is on my heart and mind. And I don't know if maybe I'm seeing the topic from the day before and it's just like the subliminal message that's playing and I'm like thinking through it. But today is the same as all these other days that are just lining up. This majorly hits home with where I'm at and even what I have been applying and putting into practice in my life yesterday and today. I am going to read a little bit of this chapter to you guys. Again, if you don't have the book, you can just carry on with the conversations. We've got a link in the descriptions where you can grab the intro and chapter 1 for free. And today, there's been a few videos that I've read a good bit inside the study, but today I'm going to read, my glasses are super dirty today. Today I'm going to read a good bit of the writings to you. When I wrote this, it was about 6 or 7 years ago, and I was at the beach. I went to the beach for about 3 weeks maybe and wrote it there. And it was a time where I knew on my mind, like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to write it. I'm going to knock it out. And it just like really flowed pretty effortlessly. That was until it actually started on the conflict day, which was, I think, 2 days prior to this writing right here. So on day 14, is that when we talked about surviving conflict?
No.
No, day 15. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Whichever day it was on surviving conflict.
13 maybe?
Maybe 13. I was over halfway through with writing the study. And on that day, particular day on surviving conflict, I had some conflict that came up in my business. And it was one of those things that it was like, it didn't even surprise me that it happened because I was like, well, this makes sense. I'm writing about conflict. It's kind of like, I think we've said before, if you're doing this marriage conference or you're doing this marriage retreat or seminar, like we will get in our biggest fight. Like we will not have fought forever and then we get in our biggest fight, then it gets in your head like, who am I to be writing on this or, doing this? And so it didn't surprise me. I kind of even felt it was comical when I saw that was what I was writing through. And so after that, it kind of just stuck in my head, like, oh my gosh, Monique, like, who do you think you are writing this study? Like, you're writing a study about things that you're still even processing through. Like, you don't even have it together. Like, all of these things were going through my mind. And I really was just having a heyday with it, man. It was just like, it wasn't good. I wasn't in a good place. One of the things that I found interesting as I was going through this study, I've had so many people through the years that have told me how they've gone through this study on multiple occasions, like multiple years in a row, and how they love how they can see how they've grown. And honestly, like, it's been eye-opening to me to go through this with you guys because I can see how much I've grown in certain areas. But then there's also things like this that stood out to me today. When I have been this past year, I've kind of thought through, man, back then, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I had it all together. It's like when you're so far removed from the situation, you forget like how you were in the moment, right? It's kind of like after you have a newborn, after a few years, you're like, oh yeah, that was bliss. And I totally was rested and all of the things. And then you're like, you forget all of the
It's like the Men in Black.
Yeah, it's like, and you forget it. You forget that it happened or that things were difficult. And you're like, let's have another one and another one and another one. babies, they're great. Keep on having babies. If my kids are watching this, keep on bringing those grandbabies to me. Disregard. But you know what I'm trying to say. Sometimes you forget kind of the pain and the struggle that you went through. And the last year or so, specifically even the last couple of months, I've been thinking a lot about that season of my life and thinking, man, like I was in a good place and I was doing this right and I was like on the straight and narrow and I was like, you know, stewarding everything well and blah, 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 blah. And what's funny is now reading this, I was like, no, I actually struggled with the same mind games then. And I'm going to read a little bit of that to you. And I was like, gosh, isn't that like the enemy? And that's really not the topic of this. And we've talked about it in several videos, but isn't that like the enemy to keep us so, our minds so active? Being still, like I didn't even really discuss this per se in this chapter, but it's like our mind stays on overdrive and our mind is not still. In the past few months, my mind has not been still. My mind has just been constantly on this loop of all of these things playing over and over and over. And it's hilarious because look, here I was writing this book, this chapter, and there I was in the same moment. And I can remove myself all these years and go, look, no, you were dealing with it. And so I kind of found a little bit of peace in that in reading this, that Monique, my goodness, like you're going to look back 10 years from now and go, man, Monique, you were doing such a good job. And it's just the enemy that wants to kind of steal that peace and that joy from whatever we're walking in the moment. And it's a horrible place and we do not need to let him do that. That's again, not what we're talking about today. Do you have something you want to say?
No, she's probably going to talk a lot on this one today because this is like your topic. Mm-hmm. But I don't have a problem with it. I'm still all the time.
Yeah, I mean...
I might have a problem being still and not moving.
Yeah, so I am super passionate about this topic. And I think it is because it's something that I struggle with the most. It's one of those things that I do have an issue with. And so I'm just going to start reading, if that's okay with you. If you've got the study, it's on page 124. Mind games. When I began writing this day's topic, I had some issues hit me pretty hard. The punch went right to my biggest insecurities. Here are the thoughts that went through my mind. You are not enough, Monique. You let people down, Monique. You don't love enough, Monique. You have failed, Monique. What makes you think you can write a book that touches on topics you struggle with in life? You aren't qualified for this type of work. You've been this way your whole life. What makes you think you will ever change? You will always disappoint people, Monique. I knew these were all lies, and it didn't surprise me. It was being thrown in my face at the end writings of this book. With that being said, I was still emotionally worn out when I went to bed that night. I woke up having to make a phone call to cancel a weekend engagement I had previously planned. The person I called just so happened to lead a small group at our church about freedom, which is her passion. She is so wise. While on the phone, I told her my current struggles. Now I have so desperately been trying to find freedom from these issues. I was running my mouth 90 to nothing, and then she said it. Monique, stop talking. The words rang in my ears. Monique, you've got to be still and let... What are you laughing?
I was just thinking, I've said that many times. Stop talking. Yeah.
Stop talking, Monique.
Today it happened, actually.
Yes.
I tried to give her the look like... She just kept on with it.
We were in a conversation with someone and I could see him looking like, and when the guy left, he was like, did you don't understand all these years the look I give you? Like, no, I don't. So anyway, so she says, Monique, you've got to be still and let God handle it. Why is it hard for us to be still? Why is our first response to work at fixing something? Why do we run to our friends before we run to God? Why is it hard to let go and let God take over? I believe the answer is simple. We are made up of body, soul, and spirit, body, the flesh. Our flesh wants to call the shots pretty much all the time. It seems natural to work to fix something. We can see our flesh, we can see our efforts, we can see our friends. And so we think, let's start there. It's so much deeper. When we surrender to God, hand something over to Him, and become still, we truly find rest for our souls. Our minds find rest. Our emotions find rest. Our feelings find rest. We are telling God we trust Him when we hand something fully over to Him. And again, that's rewinding and going all the way back to chapter 1, Give God Control. I know what you're thinking. My husband said the same thing to me when I was discussing this topic with him. You still have to work. You still have to find resolutions. You still have to do something. Yes, so very true. Being still doesn't mean you don't have to put forth effort. You are telling the Lord you trust Him. You believe He will open the doors, create opportunities, and give you wisdom and discernment. All of those things will require action once they are presented to you. Let me tell you a story about hunting for sand dollars. It will hopefully give you a good visual example of the message I'm trying to portray. I think I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes version of this sand dollar story. But before we get into that, I woke up this morning honestly not even thinking about this chapter today. I had not read it yet. I had mentioned in our previous video that today was going to be on the topic of being still. But yesterday I had someone send me that I used to previously work with, sweet girl who I haven't talked to in forever actually. She sends me this sweet message about resting in the Lord and just allowing His presence to kind of really soak all over you is the terminology she used, wash all over you. And she sends me these like Spotify playlists to listen to with this music, just really calming symphony music like I had said earlier. And I read through that yesterday, and I woke up this morning. Jared went to the gym, and I've just, in our previous videos, I've told you we've had a lot of big decisions and some things that we're processing through. Do we do this? Do we not do this? La, 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 la. And things have just been like looping in my head. And we wear these little bands that measure a ton of stats. It's got this real-time stress monitor,
Which stresses her out.
it can stress me out. If watching my stress meter stresses me out, but actually it's been super eye-opening to me, honestly, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I've noticed the last few nights when I've been like winding down for the night, my stress level shoots up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Well, I'm settling down long enough for my mind to get in this constant loop of all of these decisions that we're trying to make. And, the decisions really hinge on a lot. It's not just decisions that's stressful to me. I let my mind get in a loop of, you didn't steward this well, Monique. Can I be honest with you? The Lord is punishing you, Monique, because you didn't steward this well. The Lord, and it's so crazy to even voice that out loud, but it's truthful. It's stuff that gets in my head. You're not doing a good job. You're going to be this constant failure. You really are, Monique. What makes you think you're ever going to change? You're 46 years old. Do you think you're going to change? No, because here we are again, and you've wrote about it. You're leading people through it. You're just going to keep disappointing people. And literally those go on this loop. And so I have done 17 days without crying. I've done 17 days without crying.
I just think it's interesting that in the Bible, God rarely used people that had it all together.
Right.
It was a lot of people that had mistakes and mess ups, and I think they just got to a place where they were like, okay,
yeah,
I'm not perfect, I can't do it anymore, and and I think that's sort of being still, is I can't keep doing this over and over again. I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
It's giving control, but it's also being still, not trying to fix it.
Yeah. And I'm a fixer. I go into that, obstacles create opportunities, creative problem solving. Let's get to the problem. Let's get to the problem and let's find the solution for it. And so, and there is a time and place for that. I mean, we are called to do that. But then also there's a point where it can be taken over into an unhealthy level, especially when we listen to the lies. And so this morning, I woke up, Jared went to the gym, and I've told you guys about my best friend, Natalie. I need to introduce her to you guys in a video one day, but we talk every day on voice text. And she knows kind of the situations that have been presented and what we're trying to figure out what to do. And I told her today, I said, you know what? I've just decided, like, we're not going to move forward with this. And because I've got to get my mind focused on this trip that we're about to go on. I've got things I've got to accomplish. It's sidetracking me. But my numbers on my little band that we wear, I'll drop a link to the article I wrote on it if you want to read more about it. But it measures so much, and I can tell from the second that we decided to think about this possible kind of decision we were trying to make, my numbers on my little band started just tanking. Literally, like I had been doing so good and my numbers just start like plummeting. And the numbers that I'm measuring, it has to do with my autonomic nervous system. And that's the thing that's like, the parasympathetic, the sympathetic. Do you remember all of that in school? And it's one of those things that like, it's your stress and all of these things. It doesn't know if I've worked out hard or if I've just had a mental stressful day. It still can tank your numbers. And so my numbers have been reflecting this. And I was just like, you know what? I am done. I am done, son. And I just said, Lord, if you want this to be the way that we go, you can open the door and we will slap through it. But I'm completely fine not walking and being still right where I'm at and staying put. And that was just kind of where we were. And so Jared came home and I was like, I've decided. And he's like, oh Lord, girl, you stress me out. He's like, but that's the point where really it was just Lord, I'm still. What do you guys say?
That's like my philosophy the whole time is just like, well, if it's meant to be, I don't think about it another second.
But so I say that, and I believe that too, and I've prayed that, and I'm like, Lord, like I trust you that this will all work out if it's what you want. But then on the same time, I have this this loop that just keeps playing of, you didn't do this right. You didn't do this right. You like, oh my gosh, y'all, it's like, it's horrible. And so that's the part for being still for me. I do trust the Lord 100%. Like there's never been a point that I know he'll work it out. It's more for me being still through the constant loop of all the, you're not this, you failed, that's kind of the point. I trust whatever's going to work out. Even if I royally screw something up, the Lord is still going to bring it back around. I think I have more of just the being still with my mind.
So you
This is a therapy session, y'all. I don't even know if this is helping you, but maybe me and him talking out my issues will help you with your issues.
So you decided to go Wreck-It Ralph this morning and just tear it down?
I decided to go Wreck-It Ralph. I was like, yes. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And I told Natalie, and then I told Jer in front of someone. That's what he was talking about.
That's when I was like...
I'm not even telling anybody the stuff that we're going through, and some random strangers in our house fixing something, and I like just spill it all out on the table.
TMI.
Jeremiah's like looking at me like, what are you doing? I don't know. I'm having to sort it through. Anyway, but you know what I'm saying? Like the being still part, sometimes it's not just the physical being still, but that mental. For me, really, that's what it is. It's so much a mental. I trust the Lord so much in his ways. It's more for me just been that condemnation, throwing myself under the bus of this and that, or I'm not, so crazy.
And then I'm always trying to think about, like, it obviously the book is 21 Days of Prayer for Your Business. So if you came here for that, I'm always trying to figure out how to relate that to your business. And I can think of times in our businesses in the past where we've done stupid stuff and like it kind of spirals out of control. And the tendency is to fix it. And if you don't be still and sort of fix yourself and let everything kind of go past you.
We like to say stop.
Yeah. it's like you're in the storm and you need to like stop and sort of let the storm go past you a little bit. Otherwise, you just make one stupid decision after another stupid decision. But even in the good times, it's like it's chaotic and busy, and you sort of have to be still and sort of, find that eye of the storm to sort of survey everything and make sure it's all going the way it should be. So that in the good times and the bad times, you need to find a place of stability and stillness to
Yes.
see everything clearly.
Again, I feel like we kind of been all over the place here at the beginning, and I don't know if I hope it's even making sense to you, but I'll give you an example of what he was talking about back when we had a scrapbook store and it was doing great. We opened up a second location and it would do like 10% of what our main store did. So like if we had $1,000 a day at our main store, we would have $100 a day at our other store. And I think our other store was much larger with more employees, with more rent, all the things. So that's not good, right? That's not good. That's not good numbers. And we eventually decided, okay, well, this is spiraling out of control. What are we going to do? We've got to recoup that money somewhere. We went and opened up one of those little mall cart kiosk things in the middle of the mall. We're like, we're going to recoup the difference there.
Not a good idea.
Hello, that was the dumbest decision ever on the face of the planet, which then sunk us even deeper, into debt. And you're like, what is happening? And so that's kind of what we always have in our mind when we talk about one bad decision leads to another bad decision leads to another bad decision. And I think, in that, if you remember, we had that going on, and then we got one of those like total junk spam things of like it's this check in the mail that you can cash for like $30,000 or something stupid like that, right? Like that you always look at and go, who does this? Well, when you're in the middle of making really bad decisions and you're not stopping and being still, I think we did that in the middle of it all. And it was like some kind of scam. It was the biggest, oh my goodness, it was literally one bad decision after another.
Yeah. I can't even explain that. It was so stupid.
It was so dumb. But we tell people that, like, whenever you feel like things are spiraling out of control, just stop for a second and let the world fly by you. Let it fly by you and just be still for a second. And we have given people that advice forever. And, maybe honestly, we even need to take our own advice in that situation right now. Like,
Speak for yourself.
Speak for yourself. At least we can laugh through. We can have a little bit of tears, but we can laugh too through it all. Maybe not take ourselves so seriously, but I would encourage you. And again, we're talking about business. That was a business, but can you think about that in something with a relationship? With a fight or with a, getting a bad argument and you're going back and forth, and then you just say something so dumb off the wall, like, me and my mouth can get me in a lot of trouble. One of the verses that I have memorized very well is, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in the sight of the Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. How do I know that verse so well? Because I have to quote that verse. My mouth can get me in a lot of trouble. And so many times, if we are in a heated argument, which we really have not gotten an argument in a really long time.
We probably will now.
Knock on something. Anyway, but we haven't. But like, I will say the most just mean things, like off the wall to you. And I'm like, why, where did that come from? That was just, why did one bad decision lead to another bad decision lead to, it's like your mind is not thinking correctly. And that's an example of just in relationship, just stop for a second, stop, breathe, like just be still for a second, be still for a second. Because if we are spinning our wheels in the middle of chaos, if you're stuck in mud and you think about how sometimes it slings you deeper, but not only that, think about it, it's slinging mud everywhere too.
It's like
it's slinging it on everybody else around you. That's a good analogy, babe. Somebody needs to write that down. That is a good visual analogy.
I'll lock it in.
Lock it in. So anyway,
full circle back to your sand dollar story.
Yes, he's like, bring it back together, Monique. I was writing this at the beach, this particular thing on being still. And during this time, my daughter was with me, my youngest daughter, and we were going to go out and find sand dollars. There was a ton of little sand dollars all out on the beach. but they were in the waves, and by the time they would wash up, they were so small they were getting broken and all of these things. Well, we were bound and determined we were going to go find us some sand dollars. So we got up the night before. We went and watched some YouTube videos, like what's the best time, where you go, blah blah blah. We got up early before anybody else. We got out there, and that day we found 12 little sand dollars, and it took us a long time to find those sand dollars. I mean, they were breaking, we were getting wet, it was messy, and we were exhausted by the end of it. And that later that day or the next day, I was talking to our business partner about some things, actually the printing of the book, and some things that weren't going okay. And I was like, hi. And then I was telling him about the situation that had gone down, that had kind of gotten in my head, revolving around conflict. And, I was talking to him about it and talking about how I was really just learning to find freedom and being still. And I stopped. I had walked back out to the beach to grab my chair that I had left out there during the day, because I would write out on the beach during the day and come back at night. Obviously, why would you not? And I went out there to get my chair, and I was in this section of the soft white sand. We all know in the soft white sand, there's typically never any sand dollars out there. They're out at the part.
Or you can't see them if they're in there, because it just blends right in.
But I was deep in the white
it's
sand.
hard enough to see them at the wet sand.
Yeah, but it's how did it get up there was my thing, because it was not even where the tide would come in. And I was talking to him, and I stopped for a second to finish the conversation, and I was talking to him about how I was finding freedom. And I was talking about these sand dollars, and I looked down, and there was this little sand dollar literally right at my foot. And I was like, that's weird. And I went down and picked it up. And I got to thinking on the way back, when I was walking back with my chair, how cool that was that I had worked so hard earlier that day to find those sand dollars. And it was messy, it was tiring, they were breaking, as we were crumbling in our hands as we picked them up. But then there was that moment of me not even really processing it or looking for it, but it was that moment of when I stopped and I was still, the Lord I looked down and there was that little sand dollar. And I kind of had that visual example of when I'm spinning my wheels and I'm working, which is all still good, because I did produce 12 sand dollars, right? I still had 12 sand dollars. But there was something so beautiful and special about this one sand dollar that I wasn't even searching for, that happened when I was just still. And it was right there in front of me. And I think that's a really cool visual example. That's really how I felt. Honestly, this land that we live on right now, we had looked for land for a couple of years in Utah and couldn't ever find anything. Nothing would ever work out. And when we moved back to Birmingham, I was like, I'm done, Lord. I'm done looking. I'm not going to search. And it really did it's so crazy how it just came about. And I think the Lord just works like that. He really wants us to be still and trust in Him. Again, doesn't mean that we don't work, doesn't mean that we don't put forth effort, but I think it's more of that mental of what I'm thinking through, is that mental exhaustion that we go through, not just the physical. My health coach messaged me today, because she can see all of my numbers as well, and she was like, this trend that we're having has seemed to kind of level off, but it's on your low end. You're not up in your high numbers like you were. And I said, well, I didn't exercise today because I've been in low recovery, according to my numbers. And I said, I don't know what's going on. And she said, listen, mental stress, because she knows what's going on. And she's like, mental stress, your body knows no difference between mental stress and physical stress. It doesn't know the difference between you being worked up in your mind and playing things over in a loop and you working out hard with the cardio this morning. It literally doesn't know the difference. And so that's your autonomic nervous system. And so I want to encourage you, think through that today. What are things that that's been exhausting you? What is something that has just been so stuck in a loop in your mind and you can't let it go? Is it those negative words? Is it negative words that you're speaking over yourself? Is it just this need to have to produce? What is it? And journal through that today. Journal through that and ask the Lord to please help you in this area and help you learn how to rest and be still. Let me give you some verses really quick. that you can memorize and meditate on. Psalms 46:10, be still and know that I'm God. Be still and know that I'm God. That's so good. Isaiah 40:31, but they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. You know, there's been seasons in our business where we have seen massive results, but not even felt super exhausted by it. It felt kind of effortless. And then there's been other seasons of life where we haven't seen a lot of fruit and we felt super worn out. You know, it's this striving in our own might. And then finally, I'd ask you to think through, some ways that you can implement rest. Is it through just listening to some worship music, listening to some, classical music, listening to some whole tones, like look that up on Spotify. There's some really, maybe we can list some stuff in the description of some whole tones music that you can listen to that's very calming for your body. Also, having a Sabbath is so important. You know, the Sabbath is a gift that the Lord gave us. A day of rest is actually a gift. It's not this like, you better have a Sabbath, like obey me. It's like, hey, I'm giving this to you as a day to restore your body, to restore your mind, to restore your soul. So a Sabbath is so important. Anything you want to add to that?
We need to go.
We need. He said no. We need to go. So on that note, we did get a little long-winded today. On that note, tomorrow, and can I just tell you? Sorry, I'm going to say one more thing. Can I tell you, if you are going through any of those things, I'm praying for you this week, today, that you will find rest and that you will be able just to rest in Him. Truly, truly pray that you find rest. Tomorrow, in tomorrow's video, we are going to talk about complementation. Competition compliments you.
Ooh, dum, dum, dum.
Don't. Okay.
All right.
That's all for me. I'm handing it over to Jeremiah.
If you like this video, or maybe you just didn't hate it, give us a big thumbs up and also subscribe to our channel, please. Please. It would help us so much, and maybe tell some friends. And also, if you're like me and you want to be in the know when a video posts, hit that notification bell and get hashtag all the notifications.
Yes. All right. We're going to see you back in the next video talking all about competition compliments you. See ya.